Hey everybody, and welcome to Hero Appliance Academy. Got another live show for you guys today, but we want to talk about, of course, we've been absent for a minute. We're finally getting back into a rhythm and starting 2025. Everything's going to change a little bit as far as our schedule goes. We are moving to once a month training just because we do have S&S Appliance, which is our main appliance repair company. So we do things there as well, and that could take up time. So we're holding classes here as well, which takes a lot of my time. So we're going to switch over to once a month. And of course, we are going to be opening up seal system training to the public. We're looking at starting in February. More details on that to come with, even announcing what day we're going to start doing classes. And we do have some fun stuff about that coming out real soon. But as far as that goes, we're going to get started today, and we are going to be talking dishwashers. And this might turn into a series. We'll see how today's show goes and y'all's feedback, which is important. If you have any questions throughout this show today, make sure that you are asking them in the chat. We will get to everyone's questions at the end. Feel free to email us any questions, recommendations for future shows, whatever you want to see. Just reach out. The feedback is extremely important. So the first thing we're going to talk about, we're going to go over, of course, the tool of the month. So this was a technician recommendation. This is going to be your collapsible magnetic screw holder here. When you're running calls, we're all used to, the metal style plates. You can get them at Harbor Freight for about $5 or so. Sometimes it can be a little heavy. They take up room in your bag, and we were recommended this collapsible one here by Craftsman. There are several other brands on Amazon that you can find. They're a lot cheaper, but we've tried some, and we noticed that the magnets are not that great. We found that these Craftsman, these have been pretty good as far as the magnets on them. Even with something like this dishwasher, we do have a protective coating on it, and it still will hold on to it. And it also lets you kind of turn into a little shelf, which I've used that multiple times when working on dryers. This has been really great. You can collapse it, put it in your bag. It's not going to take up that much space. It's lightweight. So we want to thank, it was one of our technicians. I believe his name is Jackson. He recommended the Craftsman. It's been really good. So we appreciate you guys recommending, the tool of the month. We do have another one for the following live video that we do, and we will post a link to this in the chat. It should already be in the chat for you guys if you want to pick it up. But just keep in mind, there's other alternatives on Amazon that you can find that are cheaper. Just check those reviews because the magnets are kind of weak on these collapsible ones. So make sure you are looking at that as well. And like I said, seal system R600 lock ring training is going to be coming out. We are starting that in February, and that's opening it up to the public. The first two classes, we are going to be doing discounts, and we will cover that in an announcement very soon. So let's talk about dishwashers. What we're going to be talking about is the DW03 platform for Whirlpool. That's Whirlpool, KitchenAid, Jenn-Air. You see Maytags. This design, most of our techs call it the square sump assembly dishwasher because you do have the older style circle sump. So the DW03s are going to have square sump assemblies. But one of the things that keeps popping up is leaks. Issues that we're finding with these dishwashers leaking. They do have a tray, and this unit here has kind of a fun story on how we got our hands on it related to a leak. So this unit was actually a customer unit. A friend of my wife's called her about having an issue with this unit leaking. They called the servicer out, and the servicer replaced this part here. This is just the sump. This is not a full sump assembly. This is just a plastic, simple sump. There's no mechanical parts to it. It is just a plastic piece. It was replaced because it was leaking right out of this little nozzle funnel area right here in the front. And we'll go into this a little bit further into the show. So he replaced this part. Unfortunately, the issue wasn't fixed. The unit kept leaking. And of course, this was a COD call, so the customer was paying for this repair. This wasn't a warranted unit. So those repairs can get costly. There was multiple trips to the home. By the time I got involved into the call, the customer pretty much had it with the unit, had it with the service that they were getting, and they were just fed up. And by the time I talked to them, they were ready to pretty much put it out, by the road, get it gone. These are not cheap dishwashers. When you get into these KitchenAids, on sale, you can probably get them for about $800, but standard price, you're paying upwards of $1,200 to $1,400 for these dishwashers. Not a cheap product, and it's usually an easily serviceable unit. One of the things I don't recommend is replacing just the sump, and I want to say that was probably some of the problem there as well. We're trying to replace just this sump instead of an assembly. Keep in mind that these do come as a full assembly. Here is the full assembly. This is what I would recommend you replace. There are clamps here from the manufacturer. These are pressure clamps, and when you start taking these off, you're going to be using standard hose clamps that can get loose over time. The vibration of this motor, especially on this model that has your microfiltration system, it is a bulkier motor. It is, this is really designed to kind of take all the soils, everything in your dishes. And unfortunately, once you cut those factory clamps, you're left with only being able to use hose clamps. Those will get loose over time. They will leak. It's really, there's a reason the manufacturer's not using the standard hose clamps. And that right there kind of tells the story. So my recommendation always will be, if you got to replace a sump assembly or anything like that, replace it as a full kit. Don't attempt to replace just the plastic sump. And again, this is just a plastic sump. The chances of this product, this part here failing, is slim to none. I've never seen any of our techs have to replace just this part. As you can see, there's absolutely nothing to it. You do have a seal here that goes around, and it's more like a foam seal. And you have another seal here right when your diverter motor goes in your diverter plate. And then you have an inner seal, which we're going to be covering that for the diverter shaft. So really, the chances of this failing, slim to none. And the reason it was replaced is because he was getting water right here, which is designed by the manufacturer to catch water and direct it into the tray down at the front of the dishwasher. That's why I guess he went this route, is he suspected there was an issue with the seal. I've never seen it. If any of my techs have come across this, please let me know. I'm not aware of any issues with these seals. We've even taken some of these sumps off and put them back on several times, the same pump, and we've never gotten a leak on any of these seals. So I don't see that as being a potential failure rate on these. So really, you want to replace the whole assembly. And unfortunately, like I said, the customer had it with the unit. At that point, they're asking for refunds. They're dealing with the servicer. And really what that comes down to is just knowledge on the product and what can happen when you are not properly trained on a product. You don't have the knowledge to work on the product. Well, you have a customer out there in limbo. They're dealing with that frustration. And I don't know what the end result was. I did speak to the customer myself. He was excited to, for us to get our hands on it and find out what really was going on, because after several attempts, the unit was still leaking. Well, we got it here, and we found the leak, and we found what it would take to repair that leak. And let me tell you, that is the second time I've seen this issue on this particular model. When it comes to these leaks, it's a hard to find leak. I will give them that. It was hard to find. But you have to make the proper checks. And that comes back to training, because what ultimately happened is, because of everything that happened with, one, having the product down for so long and being without a dishwasher, and then dealing with the frustrations of having a servicer come back and forth, we have a customer that's unsatisfied, and they chose to buy a new dishwasher. But they chose to go to a different brand. The way I see that is, we lost a customer. we lost a potential future customer because they chose to go with a different brand. Even though they loved this dishwasher, I spoke to the customer and he did say he loved this dishwasher. Now, went to the store. If there was something else on sale, of course, the customer is going to choose to get a different brand. But that experience that he had with that servicer and this particular issue drove the customer to jump brands to a different manufacturer. We lost a potential customer. And it really just comes down to proper knowledge and training when it comes to these units. Yes, appliances at the end of the day are small compared to HVAC technicians and things like that. But there is a learning curve when working on these, and that's why we do these live video, and hopefully somebody can pick up and learn from this because you will run into it. So when it comes to this unit here, we're going to get into why they leak. What you're going to have when this unit leaks, you are going to leak into this tray right here. This is called the drip tray, and we'll show you here in a second how it all works. You have three main potential leaks that you can get. One coming from the water valve, which will be in this direction here. You also have two funnels at each end of this tray that is designed to push water into the tray and trigger exactly our flow switch here. And we're going to show this on the product itself. What's going to happen when water goes into this tray? It's going to trip our float switch. You're going to get an F8E4 fault code, and this unit is going to be chiming constantly. It is going to activate the drain pump and run that drain pump constantly because the unit believes there's a leak or it's leaking water. It's getting water all over the floor, so the unit's designed to just kick the drain pump on and stay on, which then leads you to have a F9E2, which is an electrical drain pump motor failure. That doesn't mean the drain pump is bad, but because that drain pump is running constantly, it is going to generate that F9E2 fault code as well. So those are the two fault codes you're going to have when you have water in this tray. Once you have water in this tray, there's a reason for it. I've seen several techs. I've done it myself. I go out, I run the unit. I got an F8E4. I got physical water in the tray. I run the unit, no leak. At that point, it's really easy for a technician to say, it's just not leveled correctly. Let me level it. I can promise you leveling on these units will never cause a leak. I've had this unit all sorts of wonky to try to get it to leak. As far as leveling goes, leveling doesn't do it. There's particular things that have to fail in a specific order where you get water into the tray. So if you have an F8E4 on your unit, there is a failure on this dishwasher. There is a problem somewhere that is causing water to go into this tray. Don't ignore it. Don't assume just because you ran the unit for 5 minutes and you didn't see a leak that there isn't a leak. There is a leak, and some of these leaks may take time to develop, including the leak that's on this unit, which took about 15 minutes to trigger an F8E4 after starting the cycle. Most technicians are going to run the unit. They're going to watch it. A diagnostic cycle on this unit is a max of 6 minutes. That's not running a diagnostic cycle on this unit here with the leak that it has would never trigger an F8E4. So the technician would run the cycle. They would not see the leak. They would not see the F8E4. They would deem it as maybe out of level or a fluke of a thing and move on. Next thing you know, you have that callback. You're coming back. If there's water in your tray, go further. Take time with the unit. There's even clear doors that you can install on the unit by opening the door, placing the clear door in there so you can actually observe the unit in operation, which does help. We found several leaks that way. So just make sure that you do take the time when diagnosing an F8E4. Don't just brush it off. There is a problem. If water goes in there, there is a problem with your unit. So let's talk about the three main ways we can get water in here. And we're going to go to the front of the unit here, and we're going to show that. All right. So here at the face of the unit, so of course the unit's on its back here is the full sump assembly here. And if you want to get in here, Tommy, we can show them. Here's that little funnel where we had the leaking from. And we're going to show you a video here soon of that. But that's where our water was coming from right here. So this tray, here is our float switch, styrofoam block, which engages our micro switch here. This is a normally closed switch. So once we activate it, it opens up the switch. So it kind of slides in. There's a track, and this whole system slides in place, and our float switch stays here. So with that being said, we can look at it here and see that this side is longer than our left-hand side there. And that's because we have our valve here. So with this in place, it will catch any potential, small leaks you might have from your water valve. I have had that happen to several customers where we show up, we can't find a leak, we run the unit, and then there's a very small drip coming from that. Usually you will see what you find right here is small watermarks. Sometimes you might have to hold it up against a light or something like that, and you sometimes will see a stain where water's been dripping over time. Look for watermarks. Look for things. If water is going somewhere, it's going to leave a mark, and including on plastic like this, it will stain it, depending on the customer's water quality and things like that. That will then direct that water down this channel here into the main reservoir for the float switch. Then we have our second potential leak, these little tubes here. So these tubes are attached to these funnels. There's these two funnels on each corner of the unit. And that's why a lot of technicians think, well, if it's leaning a certain way, water's going to hit those funnels and come down. It's really rare to see that. If you're getting water down these funnels and into these tubes, it is going to hit your tray. It's going to be directed into these channels. You can see the channels here. So you have a channel here, comes down. You have your secondary channel, comes down, going into the reservoir. And that's from these little tubes here and from our funnels. If you're getting water down this, you most likely have some type of water surge, wave motion that's causing it. The most common cause of this type of wave motion that's going to cause it going over the lip of the actual tub itself, because you have a lip right here in the tub, and water will come over to the lip, go down the funnel, down the tube, and into your tray. That's going to be spray arms. Any type of difference in your spray arms, anything that might happen in your spray arms, it is going to change the spray patterns. It's going to crave some wave motion, and it's going to go over the lips. It's usually in the corners that you're going to see that wave motion kind of pile up, go over, and Whirlpool designed it to catch that, to prevent any damage to the customer's floor. That's typically what we see. For wave motion, sometimes you can have a pump that's surging that might cause an issue like that. That's more on the rare side. And just because this is the original, I do want to point out, you can see here on that previous servicer, we do got standard hose clamps instead of the manufacturer pressure clamps here. This will leak over time. So you can see just the plastic piece was replaced, not something that's going to fail. So, and we're actually leaving this here because now this has turned into a training unit, find a leak kind of lab. So we run this and the technician will need to find the leak. And hopefully they don't see those live because then they'll get the cheat. So anyway, that is kind of so our secondary leak. So we have our first potential coming from the valve. Second is going to be anything doing with our spray arms or any surging inside the tub. And that's where clear doors can come in handy. We're going to get water down these tubes. And third is going to be this little nozzle area here, this little funnel area here of the sump assembly itself. That is going to be our third potential. This is the rarest one, hardest one to find. But it does happen. The only reason I really went straight to looking for this type of leak was because our technician, we have a technician, Scott, in Mobile, Alabama. He had this exact same leak on this model, which tells me there is some potential failures here when it comes to this tub. And that's why I went straight to it. So those are our three main areas of leaking. So if you have any water in the tray, check your valve, check for any type of wave motion surging inside of the tub assembly itself, and then double check here. Now, I will say, when it comes to leaking here out of this funnel on the sump assembly, if you're leaking here, this will take time to develop. This might not be something you see. It took about 15 minutes of run time on this dishwasher before I started getting some dripping coming from here. And then it takes even longer to activate the switch and generate an F8E4. So this unit could probably run for 30 minutes to an hour before we actually even trigger an F8E4. So that is another reason the technician just doesn't have that time to sit there. So make sure that you're taking your time, looking for it, and recognize your potential failure points on this unit. So let's go back to the sump assembly, and we're going to look into it a little bit further and show you the videos of what we found with this unit. All right, so the first thing we're going to show you guys here is going to be the video of the leak location right off the sump assembly. And you can see there it is dripping there from the sump assembly right there. You can clearly tell that is going to take a while to build up. So that is something to look at. And we're going to show you a video now of where the leak was. All right, so here's the video of where the leak was. That tiny little pinhole, and that's not something that really you're going to find. You got to put a light right behind it, and we found it on the tub. So what was happening, we had a really small pinhole on the tub, right on the outer edge of the sump assembly, and the sump was catching it. So let's get you a closer view here onto the sump, and we'll show you here. All right, so here's our sump. So here's the front. So right here's the front. Here's the back side of the sump. So we were leaking on the outer side of the tub, but it was catching right here in this channel. You can see this channel right here next to the seal. So this seal here seals the sump assembly, but then this outer channel collects water, and it will kind of channel all the water into this little section here and drip out of the face. Those pinholes, and what's crazy is, like I said, Scott in Mobile, he had the same issue. Little small pinholes that we're finding developing on the tub are going to catch right here on the sump and kind of redirect it towards the front into the tray. So if you see water coming out of right here on this, it's most likely not going to be this seal. Of course, you want to pull it off and inspect it, but it's most likely going to be some type of really small pinhole. And the only way I was able to find is use a flashlight on the back side, let it shine through so you can see, any potential pinholes or anything like that, because they're going to be so small. If you're not really paying attention, you're going to miss it. So again, with this sump assembly, it can be removed, it can be reinstalled. As long as you're not damaging this seal, you shouldn't get a leak out of it. So if you have water coming out here, drop your sump assembly. Do a full inspection of both of your seals. You have, of course, your seal here on your diverter and your seal on your sump assembly itself. Make a really good visual inspection of that. If those are good, if you don't see any tears or anything wrong with those seals, take a closer look at your tub. Start going through with a fine-tooth comb. There's going to be a problem. If you can't find it here on the seal, it's going to be your tub. I can almost guarantee you're going to find it in your tub. So pull out the flashlight, start looking. And now let's talk about fault codes. One of the other leak potential fault codes that we have, that is going to be our diverter leak detection. And we're going to pull these diverters out here, kind of show you guys how that all works, and how the system recognizes any leaks. So one of the questions I recently got, and I want to say that I think it's a F10E5 fault code, I believe, on the diverter leak. I keep getting asked, well, how does the unit recognize that the diverter's leak? How does that work? There is no literature. Whirlpool does not provide any literature whatsoever on this issue and what causes it. So I had to do them kind of the discovery myself. So we're going to kind of show you guys how these diverters kind of work here. So I got two of them, and the reason I got two, I'll show you here. So here's our first. This is a working diverter here, and this is the inside of that diverter. We have kind of a really cool gear ratio here. That is, of course, we're getting some torque to that main drive. When this thing is running, I've tried holding it. It's not going to happen. You are not going to be able to stop this. Sometimes you have water flowing in this, and this diverter is trying to change positions. You have a lot of water pressure that's flowing through it. So it's got the power to be able to move it. And we'll show you guys here. Let me get some power to it. This is a working diverter. So you can see we're moving here now. And this is, I want to say, we're looking at about 6 gears to kind of step down into that torque setting there. Once you can see here, we're moving. There's nothing I can do to stop it. I'll break the gear before I actually stop, the actual mechanism from working. I'll kind of get into a deeper dive into how it all works here. Put all this back into our gear system. So this is our diverter. Now let's kind of talk about what's inside of that assembly. So this one's already been taken apart. Let's get the top off here. Here's our gear system. Got four gears. We got a coil, standard coil, magnet. If you're familiar with these, electromagnet motors, this takes 120 volts to spin the magnet. This is what's happening inside. Really simple, easy to damage. I would never recommend anyone take these apart. This one itself, as soon as I took it apart, the coil actually just started coming apart. Really thin wiring. You don't want to take these apart to try to fix them. If it's locked up, it's moving. Maybe you got some damage with these gears on the inside or something like that. But you really shouldn't be, having to take these apart. If it's bad, you got 120 volts, nothing's moving. It's just time to replace the diverter. But that's what it look inside. That's what we have: coil, magnet, main gear drive system here, and that's your diverter assembly. Let's talk about positioning. So now what Whirlpool did is they gave us two things here. They have a diverter positioning sensor on this diverter here. As you can kind of see on this diverter shaft, we have several different tabs here. They're all differently shaped, positionings and things like that. And that's because what we have is a sensor here. This rides into the main drive. We have a sensor on the small control here that you're making and breaking connection on. And now, again, there's no literature on this, but I want to say, just typical Whirlpool design, it's probably an LED and a small solar panel on the other side, and that's what's generating the signal. And as our diverter moves across that sensor, we're making and breaking that connection, and we're communicating the position of the diverter to the control. That is what's happening on these tiny little controls here. I know it's kind of hard to see because how small it is, but you kind of tell here it is. If I can move it a little bit closer for you guys to see. There we go. That's pretty good. You see there. Think about it. They kind of use the same technology for your drive, not your drive systems, but your on your actuators, washing machine actuators, for your RPM, your sensors there. Kind of the same design. On the flywheel of the gear case, you're making you're breaking and making signals on that sensor. So that is how we're determining the position of our diverter. That is just going to be just that design there. But what they also added was this right here. Those little strips right here. Those are moisture strips. And we're going to kind of show you guys here, well, how does that register water or a leak on this unit? So when on your main sump assembly here, your shaft will go through this inner seal, this seal here, which I believe on the square, the DW03s, Whirlpool does not have a repair kit for that seal. Whirlpool has recently released a repair seal kit for the Zorro platform dishwashers. The Zorro platform was it is the plastic tub Whirlpool dishwashers that are black. They're a black tub, circle sump assembly at the bottom. Those are the Zorro units. I want to say I've been told that they do have the diverter seal kits. You can replace those seals. On these, I don't believe you can. So you're looking at having to replace the whole sump assembly if you have a leak here. But what happens is that seal there fails. Water will then travel. It will travel down the shaft here. And if you can see those little weep holes right here at the bottom, you can see them all the way around. Now, I'm going to get closer to you guys. You can see that there's kind of a wall there to keep water from overflowing. But then you have those little weep holes at the bottom. It'll let water travel down here. It'll go through the weep holes. And when it's on the assembly here, there's a little hole right there. And you can kind of see that there is even a little track for the water to kind of be diverted into that little hole. And that drips down. That drips down into, this is the bottom of the diverter, this little reservoir right here. So that little reservoir will collect the water. Our moisture sensor will sit in there as such. So you guys can see it sits in that reservoir. Once water starts filling up that reservoir, we make connection with those strips. It gives a resistance value, communicates to the control board, and that's how we generate the F10E5 fault code. And just to kind of show you guys what that looks like on these units, let's pull it up here. I got a cup of water. Let's turn our meter on. All right, so I've already kind of already inspected and kind of figured out how this control board is all internally wired and how it all works. So I'm going to go across these two front pins. Again, I would love for Whirlpool to communicate this information out. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. I'm going to put my leads right here. These little leads sometimes be a pain to get in there. All right, and we're reading OL. Now, as I dip the sensor into the water, you can see we're getting a resistance value. Things are changing. That's a communication. Now, what those values are and what, as soon as you bring it out of the water, you see it goes right back to open. You know, what exact value and everything is, I haven't gotten that from Whirlpool yet. I do have a contact that I'm waiting on for some more feedback. Right now, this is really just diagnosing, testing it, running through it, and trying to learn how this all works, because there is no technical literature out on any of this to explain how this all operates or how it works. So I believe, you know, we're communicating this change to the control board, we're registering it as a fault code, and that's how we're getting that leak. Now, exactly what that value looks like, we're waiting on that, and I will update everyone once I get some feedback from Whirlpool on exactly more details from engineering on, you know, what exact values we're looking for, at what point is it considered a leak, you know, anything like that. But really, this is all telling me that the control board is looking for a resistance value on those moisture strips, and that is how we're generating that leak. And we're getting the leak through, of course, the main body into that reservoir assembly. And that is how we get the F10E5 fault code. And it's pretty crazy on these tiny little control boards. It's doing two little things for us. Just pretty cool how it all works. All right, so let's get back to it here, and we'll kind of wrap everything up and go into the Q&A here. Get everything out of the way. All right, so that is what we're looking at when it comes to leaks. We kind of covered every potential leak that I've seen as considered major leaks. Now, of course, you got your standard leaks that you will see on dishwashers when we're talking about door gaskets and things like that. Those are just quick visual inspections. These are leaks that are going to take some time to diagnose. They're going to take you checking the unit out. Don't just walk away from it. Don't just throw it as leveling or anything like that. If you got water in the tray, there is a problem. And just to kind of show that those that are not aware of, this is the circle sump, the difference in the sump assemblies themselves. This one does not have a diverter in it. It's a cheaper model, but we're talking circle sumps on the Zoros that do have that kit for the diverter seal. That's what we're talking about on these circle sumps. But as far as these go, those are your leak potentials. Again, replace your full sump assemblies, recognize your leak points on your diverter leaks. If you get an F10, if I'm seeing an F10E5, that should be a really easy check to make directly at the control to see if you got resistance on those pins. And then at that point, we're looking at replacing the full sump assembly, because I would not recommend just replacing just this sump. As you saw the potential leaks, just replace the full sump assembly, call it a day. So if you got an F10E5, that's what you're looking for. And of course, don't forget all your checks for your F8E4, your open float switch. Those are the things you're looking for, including pinholes in your tub. So if this was properly diagnosed from the get-go, the customer wouldn't have had to spend the money on the labor, the part, everything that got involved in this, the multiple trips out to the home. That was a very frustrating experience for the customer. It'd be a frustrating experience for me if I was having to deal with that. I know it was a frustrating experience for the technician who couldn't find the leak. That's a frustrating experience for everyone involved, which led the customer to move to another brand, which, I completely understand. But if it was properly diagnosed from the get-go, we wouldn't have all that money tied up into this repair. We would, immediately find the problem, communicate this to the customer, and have them make the decision on the repair itself. I did price the repair out. The repair on this unit compared to a new unit at the time that I checked everything, it wasn't on sale. It was cheaper to repair by replacing the full tub. And keep in mind that some of these units do come with a 10-year warranty on the tub itself. This particular model did not have a 10-year warranty on the tub, but there is a lot of models that Whirlpool KitchenAid that do have a longer warranty on their tubs. So that, again, that could have been an alternative for the customer, and also a customer calling into Whirlpool and communicating this failure with Whirlpool can go a long way. Sometimes Whirlpool is more willing to work with the customer and maybe even assist with a parts warranty than having the customer switch brands. That's a loss for the manufacturer, for the technician, for everyone involved, especially when the customer loved this machine so much. I mean, they had a really good experience with this unit until that failure happened. So we are going to jump to Q&A. If we have any questions, we'll take care of them now. Otherwise, we're going to close out today's live and let everyone get going with their day. If you want a deeper dive into this unit, understanding how to run diagnostics on it, we can do a clear door test, showing you guys how to install a clear door, run a clear door test on the unit, and so much more. So if you want more training on these dishwashers, feel free, reach out to us. We do have our email, training dot, I want to say it is hero training.ha at Hotmail. Well, no, not Hotmail, Outlook. Yeah. Usually we have it all popped up there. So if you got any feedback or anything, make sure that you guys are reaching out to us. We will get you guys answered. So we're good to go. We will see you on the next one.